This is the Mind Your Business podcast, episode number 11. Today, we're talking all about how to improve your relationship with money. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm James Wedmore, and I've built a 7-figure internet business that offers the financial freedom to do what I want, when I want. And I'm the first to say that hard work and hustle are not essential ingredients for your success. So, how do you build a thriving business from the inside out? This is the Mind Your Business podcast, featuring myself and co-host Phoebe Mroczek. Money, 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 money. Okay, this is kind of an awkward topic for most people, wouldn't you say?
I definitely get awkward when it comes to talking about money.
Do you really?
Yeah.
How much money do you have in your wallet right now, Phoebe? Zero. Zero.
A lot of change.
A lot of coins. So we're going to talk about this thing. The first thing is that we have to identify what your relationship with money is, or at least you're going to have to. And the simple truth is that everyone has a relationship with money. And we'll look into that. So everyone does. Just like you have a relationship with your mother, your father, your roommate, your husband, your spouse, your wife. Everyone has a relationship with money, just like they have a relationship with important people in our lives. And we all know how important money is for the transaction of goods and services, right? We need it. So we kind of have to talk about it, despite how awkward and uncomfortable it might be for some people. The first thing I want to say is that I actually had a good friend of mine, Stu McLaren, point this out to me, that for people that are sitting here saying I have a great relationship with money, awesome. And I'm not going to argue that in any way, but I do feel like there are two types of people that have a relationship with money, and on the better side, or the serving side, or the workability side of money. And there are people that are either really good at saving money, or they're really good at making money. You've seen this, right? There are people they have shows about this, coupon clippers and super extra savers. These are the people first in line, camping out the night before on Black Friday. They know all the good deals, and that's where their energy goes. And I'm not knocking that. However, if that's that's me, that's totally me, that's awesome, and you're an entrepreneur, you're a salesperson, or you're in business for yourself, I think it's time we develop a relationship with money where you're good at creating it and making it. And if you look at successful entrepreneurs, that is something that they have. They have a relationship with the money that allows them to be really good at making money. And you're going to kind of need that. And so that's kind of what we're talking about today, that's why this is important. We're not just talking to any person, even though everyone has a relationship with money. We're talking about the entrepreneurs and business owners, and how we can improve your relationship with money. And it starts with being able to get really good at making it. And you can kind of know if you're good or not by checking your bank account or your PayPal, right? Your relationship with money. Well, the first thing is that what your relationship is pretty much indicated by your actions or your habits. So you want to start, if you can get really introspective here, because we're not there to coach you through this, you can start to look at how do you spend money? Or how do you feel when you spend money? And what do you say about money, right? Because I think it all stems from the story you have about money. This is what you say about money.
So when you say, how do you spend money? Are you spending it freely? Are you hoarding it?
Yes,
That's
yeah.
the kind of... Okay.
Yeah, exactly. How are you showing up? How are you feeling, being, behaving? What are you saying to yourself when you do something like spend money? Or not even spend money. When money shows up in the conversation, this, how much is this? I remember, okay, it's such a side tangent, but I remember dating advice that I was given where a woman told me that it is very sexy when a man pays the check without looking at the bill. Could you see that being something the bill comes at dinner, and he just puts his card down. He doesn't lose eye contact with the woman, puts it on there and hands it to the waiter or the waitress.
I've seen that all the time.
Right. Now think about that for a moment, because first of all, why is that sexy? But second of all, look at the habit there, the indicator, the telltale sign of how that deals with your relationship. Because imagine the converse of that, where like you get the bill and you spend the next 5 minutes saying like, wait a second, did I order this? And this doesn't add right. Are you sure that's what it said on the menu? And
bacon is an extra $2.
That's extra too, right? And I'm like, listen, we're not saying that's good or bad. We're just saying that is an indicator to your relationship with money, and your relationship with money originates from this story that you have about it. So what is your story about money? What is it that you say about money, good or bad, right? Again, I think this is a comfortable topic for some people. It's also a massive topic, because really when you start asking that, like, where did your story for money come from? You really have to look at like probably from a very young age, like when you first started having encounters with money and understanding what it is, probably habits and beliefs that you picked up from parents, or, you know, just your early environment as a child, things that we've picked up and then kind of now think is truth for ourselves. And maybe it's time to put that in check and start to question it. So I'm going to give you an example by starting with my money story, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
So
let's hear it.
If you guys don't mind. It used to suck. Like really, really bad. I knew it sucked because it's like I didn't know it sucked, but at the same time, you're like, well, I don't have any money.
So obviously something was not going right.
Something wasn't working. Yeah. But now I look back in hindsight and I'm like, oh man, it was really bad. That was really bad. So I love my dad, and I don't know if he'll ever listen to this podcast. I don't know if he knows how to use like iTunes to get the podcast. So I may be safe here, but he grew up from pretty much extreme poverty. And so, you know, that was his childhood, and he created a belief, an idea about money to create his story and relationship with money. And, you know, he kind of still acts that out today. So as I was a kid growing up, there were some very interesting things that he would do. And he still does this, by the way, like when I come home for the holidays and stuff, where like if you leave the room in his house and you've left a light on, he freaks out. Like, turn off the lights. Like, it's not like, James, we don't want to be wasteful here. Please turn off the lights. It's like, no, all that money I just lost. Like, you know, because again, I'm not condoning being wasteful or anything. Like, we should all be conservative energy and all that stuff. But like, it really comes from a place of like how much money we just lost because you left the room and the lights are on. And some people here might resonate with that because they have parents that do that. But also a big thing about keeping the doors closed at all times. Like, and the reason is like the heat is costing too much money. And we live in Orange County, California. It doesn't get that cold.
Right.
Like, it's not like we're in some freezing place where of course you want to keep the doors closed. It's freezing at night. Like, okay, come on.
The ocean breeze might get inside and cool the place down.
But it was just always so fascinating to me. And like, as I started to change my relationship, I'm such an instigator. I would like, here, yeah, what do you want me to do? Pay you the quarter that I just cost you for the whole day? You know, what a jerk. You know, and another fascinating thing. So I grew up with this of like, I mean, just if you think about that, like if we get really present to that for a moment, you'll like, what does that do for a child where like everywhere they go, everything's like, you're wasting money. Stop it. No,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and what I think it really did for me is created money as something that is this scarce, hard earned thing that is really hard to hold on to, because if money comes easy to you, it's okay if a little bit slips through your fingers. But if it's really hard to get, you hold on to it with a death grip, and you're not going to let a single extra light bulb at 10 cents an hour be on for even 5 minutes. Now, a funny thing too here to comment on as well is my dad's name is Bill. And I always found this fascinating that there's an image I have, like some people can do this. Like if you visualize one of your parents, and like what's a common thing you always see them do? Like, you know, my mom's always reading a book. My dad always paying bills. Like it's the weirdest thing, but like every time you come home, there's a dining room table and he's got these envelopes all over the dining room table. And what are you doing, Dad? He's like, just paying the bills. And that's what he's doing. And I look at my life and I'm like, really? Because I never pay bills. Yeah. Like I don't have an experience where I'm sitting down, getting out the checkbook and like, here's the electric. Because I've done things, and I've written blog posts about this, about everything on an auto pay. You know, where it's just like every month it automatically is attached to my bank account and it just pulls the money out. I'm not spending like my night, like it's that time of the month. So I got to spend like 4 hours just writing checks. That's his name is Bill, and he's always writing bills. So he would say things like money doesn't grow on trees. Mm-hmm. I felt like this, I kind of grew up with this story of like money is this hard earned, esoteric, like hard to get thing that you're not really deserving of unless you work really, really hard and spend your whole life. I'm like not working hard, but like backbreaking, sacrificing to deserve it, then hold on to it with your death grip. Okay, that was my story with money, my old story growing up. Now, I don't know what your guys' story is. You know, it was an opportunity during this podcast to look at it. But Phoebe, I'd love to hear a little bit about your story.
So I actually have a similar dad story to yours. So my dad's name is Bill also, which is funny. And he had a very similar kind of experience growing up. So he grew up not having any money and then was a cardiologist and then all of a sudden had money. And so I remember times when, you know, we were working, there are 4 of us, and we were working for $1 an hour outside, and that was like really good money. And so we would always go, I don't know, every couple of weeks to the dollar store. And then it was like, go like spend all your money. But we had to like work so hard. We would rake leaves for an hour, and then you could go and spend all your money at the dollar store. And anytime when we got a little bit older and we had credit cards, every month we would get a printed credit card statement on our beds with everything highlighted and circled that he didn't recognize. And we had to actually take it, go downstairs and explain it to him. And it was, you know, for me, that just taught me to be really, you know, similar to you, just to like to hold on to that money because it's not going to be around for much longer. But on the other hand, my mom had a very different experience. She grew up in a household that did have money. So the funny thing is, when I was reflecting back on my own story, there aren't many instances where I actually remember, you know, that I look at her and like her money story, because she didn't really have one in my eyes. She was that person who didn't look at the check and just put her credit card down. Mm-hmm. And she valued quality over cost. We're all athletes and we always had the best stuff because she wanted us to have the best stuff and that's what we deserved and all that. So I kind of grew up with that, you know, with one side being one way and the other side being the other way. And so I feel like my money story has kind of transitioned as I've gotten older, whereas like growing up, it was very, you know, money's not sustainable, hold on to it. And now it's transitioned more into like my mom's story, which is I'm going to have that because I deserve it, because I want it and I've worked hard for it and it's okay.
Yeah.
So,
and again, we want you to realize that here, what we're doing here is just showing that there is a correlation, there is a connection with, you know, our experiences growing up, the first times we had to even like discover what is money and like watching our parents and learning from them or other influential people as we were young children. But not to say that like any of these are good or bad. Like, it's not good or bad. It just is. It's just the story we've created about money. And so there's 2 things to point out here. First is like, well, you've created it because you observed an influential member in your family act, behave, and say certain things. You just at some certain point in your life decided, well, that's just the way it is. And then you stopped questioning it and you stopped looking at it a different way. And then all of your actions lined up with that way that it is. And we just like to look at that and start to challenge it and question it and say like, well, is that serving you? How does that serve you? And, you know, the best way is to look at your current circumstances, like looking at the bank account and looking at, you know, have you had spending problems or, you know, money issues and stuff like that? And then just do the work to look.
But I think also to like identify if you've had an experience like me where it's transitioned, like what was the point that everything changed for me? You know, was that, and now that I'm kind of reflecting back on it, I think it was, you know, when I first started working in an MLM company and I started making my own money and I saw how easy it was and how much I enjoyed it. And then for me, everything changed.
Wow.
And it was just like that. So maybe, you know, for the listeners to actually go back and see if you have transitioned either way, to find out, you know, just to try to identify what period of time that was or what was happening or going on for you. And also, one thing I was going to mention before is if you're a parent, I think this would be a really funny situation to go through or just exercise to go through to see how you're talking about money around your kids.
Wow.
You know, just
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, because I'm sure a lot of people do have kids, and to change the way that you're talking about it and kind of tell us what happens. You know, are you able to change that? Because you have the power to do that. Kids are looking at you all the time.
Like, I can only imagine that if we're doing things, you know, like telling our kids, like, you can do anything you set your mind to, and like, you can be anything you want. And then 10 minutes later, you come in the room and you're like, gosh, I just can't afford this. Mm-hmm. You know, like there's got to be some sort of contradiction that's being created. Like, wait, I thought we can do anything we want, but we can't even do this, you know? And that's why like this money thing is a tricky thing, but we just picked up stories from our parents who picked them up from their parents. And
well, I read a really interesting article that was saying for parents out there that rather than saying I can't afford it, it's we choose not to spend our money in that way.
Yeah.
And I love that because
Totally.
that's something even I use now, even with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's not that I can't afford it. I just don't really want to spend my money on that.
You know, and it's the same thing with time,
Right.
too.
Yeah.
Is like we all have the same amount of hours of time, and people say like, I don't have time for this. And that's what you end up like creating in your life is not enough time. But if you say like, it's not that I don't have time for this, I choose not to spend my time
Right.
on this, it's so much more powerful. So I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this isn't about, oh, this is bad, or like, oh, how Phoebe's dad about money, like that created a bad story for you. It just is. And then you have to look, is it working or not? Is it serving you or not? And there are things to like really look at that I think have become really cliche, but common sayings or phrases that you hear people say about money, like the whole, conversation of money is the root of all evil.
Right.
Well, if that's something you believe, first of all, remember it's a belief, and then look, how does money show up for you? Because obviously if that's what you believe, you don't want a lot of evil in your life.
Right. And your brain is telling you, well, I don't want any of that, so I'm not going to give you any of that, which is essentially what we're talking about.
Yeah, like, oh, well, you don't want evil. So,
right.
And then obviously, like, I've heard this before, but like the quote has really been taken out of context. It says, the love of money is the root of all evil. That's a huge difference. Like when you add the love of in front of money, that's a huge, massive difference. Massive distinction. And instead of just saying money is evil, it's the love of money. And it's totally different. So, but there are other phrases people say things like, I can't afford it. Well, Phoebe just gave you a great example. Instead of saying I can't afford it, just say I choose not to spend my money on this, or I choose to invest my time or money in different things. I'm not worth it is a great thing, because a lot of it comes down to worthiness issues.
Like, who says that? I'm not worth it. Well,
or I'm not worthy of it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, like, because we're talking about this conversation for business owners and entrepreneurs, like we all have to sell. And so we all put prices on our stuff. And I know if I said, we've done an episode on raise your prices and, charge X for this, be aware of what shows up and what you say when you do want to raise your price. Are you saying things like, I'm not worth that much money, I can't charge that because I just don't feel like I'm worth it, or my clients can't afford that, they can't pay that much, that's too expensive for them? And those are really huge indicators, telltale signs into what your relationship and story is with money. So what we want to do with this episode is in a moment just give you a fun little exercise that may just help with your relationship with money. Because the way I see money today, to use an analogy, is if, there's a big concept that money is energy. And I really believe that money is more of this thing that flows in and flows out. Okay. And so the analogy and the visualization that I use is that money is like a river. And I think a lot of us try to use, instead of a river, we try and use it like a dam or a puddle or a lake or a pond, where we try and hoard as much of the money as we can. And, like jammed up water becomes stale and stagnant and yucky and whatnot. And a river is something that's always flowing. And the thing is you can have like a little creek, or you can have like Niagara Falls. And I choose to look at money as like Niagara Falls for me, where in order for money to flow in, it has to be willing to flow out. And I think that's a huge distinction for people, is like actually coming to grips that if you want to improve your relationship with money and experience more abundance in your life, you have to at one point be okay with the process of letting go of money, of letting it flow out. Because if you're not, if you still struggle with spending money, with paying for things, then what you're really saying energetically to the universe, all of that, is that I don't have enough money. I can't afford this. Money is this precious thing that there's not a lot of, and I got to work hard for it and all of that. And when you can just let it go easily, you start to experience it come in easier. And a lot of people are going to say, yeah, easy for you to say. And it is easy to say, and it is really hard to get that if this is the first time you're hearing a concept like that. So what we want to do is I want to give you just a super quick, easy exercise where you can try this on. Okay. So this is an opportunity for you to get to experience a little bit more ease with money flowing out so that it can flow in. And it's really simple. The next time you need to make a transaction or pay for something, I want you to actually visualize and imagine where that money actually goes as you send it out. And I want you to imagine how it will be used by others. And this is as you're spending the money or handing over the money or handing over the credit card, whenever that uncomfortableness is at its peak height, that's when you want to just visualize, where is this money going? Just like energy or like this like liquid that's got to fill its container, like where does it go? And the more that you visualize and grasp how your transaction is directly impacting others, the more empowered you're going to feel.
And getting super specific.
Yes.
And I think we have a good example of that.
Yeah. So let's share Phoebe's example. So by the way, this is a huge update because I know in one of our earlier episodes, we talked about manifesting and I was like, so what do you want to manifest? And you're like, it wasn't even like where you wanted to live.
No, it was just, I just wanted an apartment. And I kept saying like, I want a bright apartment with, we should go back and listen to it. Because I sent you a text and was like, I got a new apartment. And your response was like, didn't we just talk about that? Yeah. And I realized that, there you go.
I did. So what has happened?
So I now have a bright, beautiful apartment in San Francisco.
Yay. That's so awesome. And what was the experience of like finding it and getting accepted and all that type of stuff?
To be honest, I think a lot of this had to do with like kind of my relationship with money. I mean, I wasn't planning that, but it was really just an easy process. I wanted to find something I loved and I was not jumping at the first thing. There were a few apartments that I saw that were more expensive, a few that were less expensive. And the one I settled on was the one that I absolutely wanted. And so it was a really easy process.
That's awesome.
But then when we get into like handing over the money.
Yes. And that's what we're talking about here. So like, what was your initial experience when it was like, okay, probably rent first and last months and a security deposit or something?
Yeah. So it was I had to write a check for almost $8,000, which did not, it was really scary. It was exciting.
Tell me more about how that felt. Like, what did scary feel like?
So,
like, do you have a specific moment where you like writing the number out? When did it feel scary?
So I was at Wells Fargo and I had to get a cashier's check.
Yep.
And so I had to like type the numbers onto the little keypad. And as I'm typing out, the guy was like, okay. And he like made this comment about, well, what I made it mean was, oh, wow, that's a lot of money. And so then I started to doubt myself. I was like, that is a lot of money. So
what a jerk. Such a jerk.
Wherever he is, I'll find him. So he like printed it out and then I was looking over it and I said, yep, it's fine. And I didn't even want to look at it actually. And I just kind of stuffed in the envelope. But as I realized there was a typo on it. So I had to pull it back out and then I had to like reread everything back over. I was like, right, 7,900, whatever it was. And that's when I just had this like sinking feeling that was almost just, I don't know what it was. I think I was just nervous. And what I was making it mean was just, it was so serious.
Yeah. And I'm not getting that back.
Exactly. Like there it goes.
And so scary that you couldn't even look at it.
Yeah.
So unfortunately you didn't have this exercise.
I know.
At that moment, but pretending that we could take you back to that very moment where you're telling him or typing in 7953.2, whatever. How would you try on this little exercise? So again, for everybody listening, the exercise is that the moment you feel the height of this uncomfortable, yucky feeling of letting go of your money is to find a way to soften it and feel empowered. And the way we do that is start to imagine and visualize where this money is going. So this is you paying for your apartment. So how would you do that in that moment?
So I would look at it and get really specific. I never met my landlord, but, visualizing that money going straight to my landlord so that she can, she has money for her family. And so she can put food on the table and so she can live in sunny San Diego. And so all these things with her, but not only her, I have this other handyman who came and, I didn't have to pay for him because it was included in my rent. And I know he lives around the corner and he has 2 kids in college. So to help pay for their bills and the homeowners association fees, having the money go to those people and to, keeping the actual like area clean and all the people that work there. And I think the more specific and the more that I'm able to visualize it. I think for me, it's like the landlord and the handyman, because I've actually spoken to them on the phone.
Yeah.
And the handyman I've actually met in person. So
how does that feel? Just like doing that?
So much better.
Right. It does. It makes you feel so much more empowered. Like, okay, wow. Like, it's not just giving away money. It's just it's passing it on and opening a space for more to come in. But, you don't need to know who it is. I've done this exercise before. I mean, I do it all the time, and it really helped me because it was bad for me. Like, I was just like, no. And, I'll do it for like going to a restaurant, even just like a cafe, and like imagining what the busboy is, part of his paycheck is getting this. And that the barista who's taking my order is like, this is going to part of her paycheck. And that, some of this money is going to go to paying for all the hard costs of the food, of the rent, the this and the that. And just like playing with that of like, holy cow, like this is going into all these things that are now, of course, contributing to the result that I'm paying for, which is this meal. And just like your place, like you could also, I love how you took it to help pay their kids who are going to college and put food on the table. But there's also things like, well, what about just the maintenance of the building in general? Like someone has to tent it for termites and make sure that, it's been, not just fumigated, but, there's no rats in the building. Right. Hopefully there's not, it's been painted and new carpets. And
for everybody in in the complex, everyone gets that amazing opportunity to live in a beautiful city, in, a great complex, in a clean complex with no rats, and having that experience makes me feel so much more empowered.
So that's what I want to challenge you to do. If you've been listening to this entire episode, if you feel like money is something that triggers you, or you have some resistance to, or you have an interesting relationship with it that you don't feel like is serving you, is to just try on this. Like, this is like the simplest, easiest exercise in the world, because you don't need to do it out loud. You don't need to write it down. You just visualize it as you're handing over that money at Starbucks, or, buying that expensive dinner with you and your loved one, or whatever it is, even just like buying a Christmas gift or something for family members, like imagining where that money is going, and just be present to what it feels like, how it feels, and how you feel as you go down that path of seeing where the money is going. It's super powerful and super simple. Why are you doing it? Because the more you get okay with money going out, the more easy and effortless it is for money to go out. I believe the more easy and effortless it is for money to come in. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. I'm James Wedmore.
I'm Phoebe Mroczek.
And this is the Mind Your Business podcast. Are you frustrated that no matter how hard you hustle, no matter how much you get done in a day, you still feel like you have little results to show for it? Do you feel like you're doing everything right, but there's still something missing? Well, what if there was an easier way? What if your business could be fun, effortless, and profitable? Phoebe and I have put together a free audio MP3 for you, compiling the 77 business affirmations for creating success from the inside out. And we want to give it to you absolutely free. This is your chance to rewire your brain for bigger results in your life and your business. To get instant access absolutely free, simply visit 77affirmations.com. That's the number 77affirmations.com.